Hey everyone, welcome to Let's Chat Reality. I'm Michael,
And I'm Molly.
and today we actually have a bunch of shows to talk about. We have The Mole, the finale, last two episodes. We have Claim to Fame, the premiere of that. We have the premiere of Real Housewives of Orange County, season 18. And then, of course, we have to discuss the main event of the week and every week for the last 4 or 5 weeks, Love Island USA. So let's begin though with The Mole. So we got the last two episodes of that, like I mentioned. We had left off on a cliffhanger where Hannah had the choice of sticking with the $20,000 basket that she had found or getting rid of that and taking a risk on choosing another basket, which potentially may have the immunity. So she ended up sticking with the $20,000. Molly, were you surprised by that decision? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I was surprised because I know that last week we had talked about in general, like, oh, they're not going to just let them not have any money in their pot. So I was kind of thinking Hannah would lean more towards that exemption, but obviously everyone else was super happy when she came back and didn't take the exemption and did choose to give the use take the cash as that temptation. So that was really great to see that she actually is a team player and really solidified that she was not the mole.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that that was the right move because everybody picked her with that in mind, that she was going to take the money, that she's the one who cares the most about the money in the group and that they feel most confident with. And I think that if she had done anything other than that, when she had that opportunity right in front of her to get the 20,000, I just think it's not worth at this point, this late in the game, where they don't have very much money in the pot. I think that that would have. I mean, look, I guess making everybody suspicious of you is a strategy. So I mean, her picking the exemption would have certainly fulfilled that. But I do think that, given the circumstances of everything, I do think that her picking the money in this case was the right call.
For sure.
So we had after that, we had, I think, the biggest shock of the entire season to me was this next elimination where Ryan, who Molly, both you and I, for the past 2 weeks, have talked about how it is so obvious that Ryan is the mole. There's no chance that it's not her. Why are they making this so obvious? We're pointing out every little moment of her being suspicious, and then her light shows up red, and I almost fell out of my chair. I mean, I thought that I needed to go to the eye doctor. Am I googling, am I colorblind? Like, I mean, I was so convinced that I couldn't actually believe what was I was watching right in front of me. Now Deanna was eliminated too right after that, to mention. But what were your thoughts when you saw Ryan get eliminated here?
Oh yeah, I was totally shocked as well. When I saw that turn red, I was like, "Wait, what?" Like this was so shocking to me. But I mean, I feel like I don't know, the way they edited, like I think they were doing that on purpose and like making us want to think it was Ryan. And then the end that was like not her, that everyone wanted like was like, "Oh my gosh, that's crazy." So props to the producers and editors for that because they did a good job at convincing us. But I don't know. I feel like, I mean, Deanna was obvious that she was not the mole, but for Ryan, I really, really was convinced as well. But well, obviously we were wrong. So I mean, that's what makes the show fun is that you can be wrong. So that's fun.
Yeah, it's like I almost feel like now I want to go back and rewatch some episodes because the last few episodes, like the second batch of episodes, I would say, I was watching with the mindset the entire time that Ryan was the mole. And so I was looking at her so closely that I almost wasn't even paying attention to anybody else. And I now feel like I need to go back and watch those again to like see. I mean, look, spoiler alert, we find out that Sean is the mole. But I want to go back now and look at his moments and his scenes closer because I feel like, and we did get, him talking about the sabotage at the end, but I am curious to watch it with kind of a different mindset if I would notice different things because I just probably not smartly, watched it being so convinced that it couldn't be anyone else. But let's talk about a little bit about. So we had Hannah eliminated, but before the finale, and our final three then were Michael, Sean, and Muna. So, what were your thoughts on Michael winning and Sean, the announcement that Sean was the mole?
Yeah, I mean, at the end, I was not that surprised after Ryan got eliminated. Like, I was kind of leaning more towards that Sean was the mole there. But I did think it was a little bit obvious in the end. Like, everyone was like, oh, yeah, like, it's Sean. He's choosing to take this one step. That's a different step. Like, we just told him to do it. But then they were also like, when they were all going through their confessionals, like, the fact that Sean had to still talk about, like, why he thought that Michael and um, Hannah could have been, or wait, who was at the end? Oh, Muna. Michael and
Muna.
Muna could have been the moles. Like, it was just kind of funny that it was like, oh, like, we know one of them is the mole, but they're doing a really good job at not showing that it's them.
Hmm.
So, I mean, we knew Sean was undercover cop, so obviously he's experienced in this. But that was also impressive to see that side of it where I was almost like, wait, how can it be Sean? Like, if he's really going out about like all these other questionable things that everyone else is doing, like, I was kind of convinced it could have been Michael, honestly. Like, I was like, oh, yeah, like maybe it's Michael. Like, I didn't really think that closely and 100% thinking it was Sean at the end. Like, I was like 80-20. Like, I was like, maybe there's a percentage that could be Michael, but I still, I mean, obviously it was Sean. And I think that, like, I thought when I did see like some of the sabotages, I feel like that he was doing, but I didn't think of it in that way because of the fact I thought it was going to be too obvious the way he was going
Hmm.
about it. So I was just like, oh, like, no, it's not Sean. He's just doing this so that people will vote for him, but then it's someone else. But
Right.
that obviously was not the
Right.
case.
Yeah, no, I thought like we saw him take the picture off the wall at the Clue dinner and like replace it, and that was so obvious that it was like, okay,
Mhm.
clearly he's trying to make people think he's the mole. But then we saw that that he actually did it another picture too. I don't think we saw that even. But that one that we did see was him intentionally making it seem like, oh, the mole wouldn't make it that obvious. So it's like that reverse psychology where it's like everything's suspicious and nothing's suspicious. Like, but yeah, no, I agree. I was very shocked to find out that Sean was the mole. I even up until the end was not convinced that it was him at all. Even after Ryan went home, like I don't think he was even second on my list. But when he did, then go through all this different sabotage, in every mission, it definitely made sense. Like, there were certain things where it was like, oh yeah, that was suspicious, but it didn't click at the time because everyone else is doing other things that are so suspicious too, that in a vacuum, it is obvious. But when you combine it with everything that everyone else is doing and everyone in their confessionals pointing out all the different suspicious things, and it's like, you don't think twice about certain things that when you look back, you do see.
Yeah. Also, I feel like in the like pretty early on in the episodes, Michael did think it was Sean. And I was talking
Hmm.
to one of my friends about this that she thinks that people like she wanted that Michael wanted people to think it was him so that he could keep Sean as like his own like people could still vote
Hmm.
for Michael and get out because it was not Michael, but then he in the end like ended up winning because like he kind of had a feeling that it was Sean all along. But I'm not sure if like he was using that as strategy in like terms of thinking that it was Sean and then really not trying to sway people's opinion and thinking that it could have been him. And thinking it was Michael, but I don't know. It's interesting that I feel like I mean everyone was doing sabotage this season. That it was just like it was hard to tell with who was actually the one doing it the most.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is so much harder when everybody's trying to sabotage. It's so much harder to tell what's intentional and what's actually the mole activity and what's people trying to make themselves think that other people think that they're the mole. Like, it makes it so much harder to tell. And I think that's why I kind of wish with this show that we didn't get so many confessional interviews, because I think that it would be a lot better if we could see more of the actual challenge, or not challenge, the missions they call them. Like, I think if we could see more of those, then we could get a better sense of like what everybody is actually doing versus seeing something happen and then immediately always cutting to a confessional of someone saying that's suspicious. Like, I don't need that. Like, maybe we talked about this last week. I can't remember what I talked about on here,
Yeah.
but what I thought in my head. But I think that getting to see a larger portion of the missions themselves and the tests and the strategy sessions when they're living together, like, I think that I would rather see more of that and less of the confessionals, and I think that maybe seeing that would allow us to get a better sense of what people are actually doing and thinking.
Yeah, I agree. 'Cause also we know at least like one person is lying all the time, you know? So it's like, who is the person like actually, or not, maybe not lying, but like calling things out that whoever the mole is, like obviously whoever it is not gonna out themselves.
Right.
So everyone is just pointing fingers at everything that they're seeing, which is then causing like who like what do they think is actually happening here? Like if it's like, oh, do they think this person is actually the mole, or are they just saying that to the cameras and then they think something differently? But they're showing us what that edit was like, or whoever they're talking about in that moment, for us to then be thinking that it could be anyone in a way that, like, I feel like that just
Right.
confuses people more. I want to be able to see what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we have ended with season 2 of the Netflix version of The Mole, really season 7. Hopefully, it will get renewed. We will get another season, in the next 5 years, with how long Netflix takes to release seasons these days. But we will certainly keep you all updated as we hear news on a potential new season. But let's move on to another show where everybody's lying and hiding their identity. Claim to Fame. Season 3 of Claim to Fame started this week, and we are so excited. It was one of our favorite shows last year to cover, and the last couple of years since it's been on. So, Molly, what were your thoughts on this premiere?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good premiere. I like the cast so far. Like, there's not anyone that I like dislike on the cast, which is good. Obviously, it wasn't as drama as last year's premiere episode, but overall, I think it was a really good premiere and gave us a little taste into who everyone maybe is related to, but we don't know yet who they are.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that it was a slower start than the last two premieres. I mean, season 1 we got that guy who was hiding a cell phone, and then obviously last season we had Carly's meltdown. So this had big shoes to fill, and I would say that it was definitely a more calm premiere, but that's not a bad thing. I think that we're not always going to get such a blockbuster premiere, and that's okay. And that actually is good because it shows me that they're not just intentionally creating drama where there isn't organically to have a crazy premiere. So I'd prefer that it isn't always that, because then when it is, we do get that, it feels more exciting because it's a rarer occurrence. But I agree with you. I think that in the sense of strategy, I think that this was a really interesting premiere. And I think that it definitely seems like the show and the strategy is evolving as the years go on, which is really exciting. So I do feel like we have a lot of gamers this season, which I think will hopefully lead to an exciting season as we go on here. So we saw that in this episode that Miguel and Bianca were the bottom two after the yearly talent show, which is in its own way. I don't know how I feel about the talent show being such a yearly event, because I don't know that I completely understand the purpose of it, but that's okay. But what were your thoughts on Miguel and Bianca being the bottom two? Who between those two would you have picked to be the guesser, do you think?
I was trying to think about this, and I feel like I was kind of in between both of them. I probably would have chosen Miguel just because, or I mean, I guess he didn't really know anyone, but I felt like he was kind of just very emotional as a player, and that's not always someone that you might be think can go that far in the game, because if he's reacting that way in the very beginning, like you don't know how he's gonna be the whole season. So maybe that's just more of like that's like a wild card kind of person that you might just want to get out in the beginning. So I probably would have gone for Miguel. And I like the girls' alliance in the house, so like that's why I was also more, but would vote more Team Miguel because I like Bianca more as a person, I would say, or at least like I think she's really smart in getting guesses, which also was why people wanted to get her out because they thought that she would be able to get the clues better than Miguel would have been. So I think it was a good
Mhm.
move on the house to vote Bianca for the vote, but or to get her to be the guesser. But I'm sad to see that she left.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that that was actually a really smart and interesting strategy that I didn't expect the group to think about in week one. Like, I actually was really shocked that they were able to kind of think that far ahead and that strategically as to, oh, Bianca is going to know more people. And so that's going to make her a better player. Like, in week one, I feel like it takes sometimes, like, these people a few weeks to really pick up the game and pick up the strategy. And so I was very impressed that they thought that way, and I do think that in terms of that, that was a very smart decision to go with her. Albeit a bigger risk because if they think she's better, then then she might be able to stay in just by getting somebody identity correct. But week one's the best time to try that because you're going to have the least amount of information on everybody. So they got her out, and that was,
Yeah.
I think, a really good move on their part. So as much as I would have preferred, probably just personally, maybe for Miguel to leave from what we've seen, but look, he seems like he's going to be a very entertaining, chaotic character. So I could definitely grow to appreciate him by the next few weeks if he stays in. So I think it was probably the right move for them to go with Bianca there. But then we were revealed that her secret relative was Robin Roberts. Did you have any idea of that, or was that a surprise?
I did not have any idea. I don't have any idea for any one of these people. So, I was not like I was just like, "Oh, good, that's awesome. Like, I love Robin Roberts." So, it was cool to see. And now after they revealed it, like I was like, "Oh, like they look similar. They kind of talk similar in certain ways." So, I was not I mean, I guess in the end you can't be totally surprised. Be like, "Oh, I know who it is." Like maybe I wouldn't have been surprised, but obviously I still was surprised. So it was a good reveal. I think that I don't know if anyone would have got it though. Like I feel like that's kind of a niche celebrity person that like I mean if you watched the news and everything like you would see her, but you might not think about her as like a top of mind person maybe necessarily, but everyone seemed to know who she was. So maybe they would have guessed her, but I feel like I wouldn't have in that situation.
Yeah, like she's definitely a recognizable name and face. Like I certainly know who Robin Roberts is, but I don't know that I would think of her in the same caliber as a lot of the celebrity relatives we've seen in the past, like Tom Hanks or like in that type of vein. Like I don't know that I would think of Robin Roberts as like a possibility in my mind, but once I got enough clues to that pointed to her or like news anchor or something like that, then when you're kind of thinking about in that vein, I could see myself thinking of Robin Roberts as an option then. But this early on, with the amount of information we had, no, I would never in 5 million years would have thought of her. But yeah, no, I certainly had no idea of that. But is there anybody who you do think that you are maybe catching on to who their celebrity relative is at this point? Or
The only one I can think of is when Shane slips up and says that his last name is Jackson. That I feel
yeah.
like that's obvious that he's one of Jackson brothers, but I don't know his like who I guess they can say Michael Jackson is his celebrity relative for that, but I don't know if he was just like I feel like that really was a slip up in that. So probably him. That's the only guess that I because I feel like that was pretty obvious there, but no one else that I know of yet that I can think of. I don't know. I think there's one like country singer people are saying someone's related to, but I don't even know who it is.
Yeah,
There's too many
I
people
well,
that I
I've
just like
heard
don't have
that.
enough clues for right now that I'm like I just
Yeah. No, I agree with you that I do think that was a real slip up. I know there's some talk like, oh, was that intentional? Like that would be next level strategy, and I hope that somebody does do that in the future because that's brilliant. But I agree that I do think that felt like a very unintentional slip up where he said Jackson there. And now there are other Jacksons. That there isn't just Michael Jackson, but he did say earlier on that like his relative is like one of the most famous people. So like I think that that then would lead to Michael Jackson being it. But I other than that, the only other person who I know for sure, I mean, we did get the Brat Pack clue in tonight's episode, so I do think that that, only limits it to a certain group of people there. But other than that, I do think that the only other one, there is one that I do know with like 100% certainty, and I don't know, should I say it here? I guess if you don't want to be spoiled in any way, and this isn't a spoiler because they haven't announced it, but I do know with 100% certainty who HUD is. And that is just being a Housewives fan. HUD is Teddy Mellencamp's brother, who is also John Mellencamp's son. So that he's the only one that I know just from Teddy Mellencamp's Instagram. And I did not pick it up when I saw the cast list first came out and I just saw his picture, but once he actually said his name on the show in the premiere and I got like more time looking at him, I was like, oh, I do know who that is. So he's the only one that I know with 100% certainty. But other than that, completely clueless.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I wouldn't have known that because I don't really watch Housewives. I mean, I'm just starting now, but not. Which one was she on?
She's on Beverly Hills, but she actually makes an appearance in the trailer for Orange County
Oh.
this season because she and Tamara Judge have a podcast together, Two Teas in a Pod. We get news. I get news that we share here from
Mm.
them quite often. But yeah, so she will make an appearance on the season of Orange County, which now we can transition to very organically here the premiere of season 18 of The Real Housewives of Orange County.
Yeah.
So, Molly, this was your first season, first episode, almost first episode of Housewives ever, I think. You watched the Salt Lake City finale last season because we talked about that. But other than that, I think this is one of your first, you'll be your first full season watching. So, what were your thoughts on the premiere episode and just the show as a whole as a new viewer?
Yeah, no, I was really enjoying it. I feel like people are very into the Housewives franchise of all the shows and everything, and I just for my own like I don't know time, whatever I was thinking, I just didn't have the time to watch like all of the seasons or not. I didn't start it back when it like they were starting, and so I just kind of got behind, and I was like, oh, I don't want to watch it because I already felt like I was behind. But now that I'm starting it, like I kind of understand things, so it's not so shocking to me like hearing some of this drama. Obviously, like we talk about things, so it's funny to see it now. Like not funny, but it's like interesting to see it now, like in actual filmed way and like everything that goes down. Obviously, there's a lot of drama with these women, which also adds to the entertainment of it. I think in the past, I just got tired of just listening to drama shows. Like, I was like, I want there to be a purpose, like a dating show or
Mm-hmm.
competition show. So that's why I never really got into the Housewives. But now that I know there's a lot of drama within Orange County this season, I obviously want to be in the know and what's going on. And we talked about certain news stories. So it's more interesting now, like watching it on this side of it where it's like you kind of know what's going on but you don't because we don't know what was really filmed. We only hear the stories of what could have happened or what was going down, but obviously not everything is broadcasted until it's actually airing, so it's interesting to see that as well. And overall, just I enjoyed watching this, and there's a lot that went down in this episode.
Yeah, no, I think that Orange County is a perfect one to start with because it's the OG. Orange County is what started it all. And it went through, so I would say Orange County season 7 through 11 are like the best stretch of Housewives seasons in a row of all the cities. Like it was just so strong for that 5 season stretch. And then it really fell off the rails for a bit. Like a lot of the people left and the people who came in, there were a lot of 1 season housewives coming in and out for a long time. And it just, the chemistry wasn't right. It didn't, it was really, really bad. And then last season, they brought Tamara back after being gone for a couple years, and Heather came back the year before that, and now we're finally back to feeling like there's a lot of OG, a lot of really not OGs technically, but like longtime veterans of the show that have come back to the show, and the chemistry's there, and it just really kind of got back on track. And then this season, I think, is like not only is it back on track, but it is like back to like its strongest point ever. And so I'm really, really excited for this season. It just feels like there's so much going on with everybody. And there was, everything with Shannon and Alexis that happened just so organically. And it's just so crazy that it happened the way it did. And I just feel like they started filming right at the right time. And just everything with Jen and her husband that we're going to see, like, that scandal, there's just so much going on, and it's one of, I think, the most highly anticipated seasons in a long time, so I'm really excited that we're covering it here. But what were some of your highlights from the
I
episode?
just love Heather's comments. Honestly, like I was like all of her interviews were so funny. When she would say things, like I really enjoyed watching her. Which I feel like I've also heard of her before, but I didn't know her personality or like what she did. Like
Mm-hmm.
just I forget there was one in particular comment that I'm blanking on right now, but I was just like that was just whatever she just said was like that should be a meme. Like it was so funny. Um but I think the cast, what you're saying is like it feels like they all just like get along or not get along, but there's like friendships, but then also drama in everyone. So it's just like
Yeah.
there's lots of things that are going down. It's hard to cover it all right now because I'm like I need to process of what what even just happened. But and the most significant part of it though was when we were talking about Shannon and Shannon like having the DUI and all that stuff that everyone is going over, like thinking like she's a terrible person, and then she's coming into the group now, like when she has to interact with everyone. Like that was an interesting part of the episode, just because we weren't sure how everything was going to go down there, and there was obviously a lot that we probably didn't see also, but that we're going to see maybe next week more so. But overall, I feel like Shannon side of things too is going to be interesting to like just understand more and seeing her journey throughout the season.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting because, the other two Bravo shows that we've watched together were Vanderpump Rules and Summer House this past season. And Vanderpump Rules, I think the issue this past season was that it was so incredibly divided and toxic that, like, you didn't believe that that was a group of friends that would hang out outside of the show. And I think that that's where Orange County was for a little bit too. But this season, I think this is, I would say, more similar to Summer House last season, where yes, there's drama, but at the end of the day, like, this group does feel like there's a lot of organic friendships and a lot of history. And the drama is certainly there and it's heavy, but except for Shannon and Alexis isn't even full time. She's just a friend of this season. So, like, with the full time cast, just kind of focusing there, there's definitely drama between like Shannon and Tamara and Shannon and Heather, but at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like this is something that they can never get over. And I think that's what's so important. When it gets to a certain point of darkness, that's when it's feel like, okay, we've got to change something here because this isn't going to be able to work for future seasons. But I feel like the where we are right now, it does feel like this group and the dynamics can still very much change and grow and shift over the years. So I think that that's why this is in such a good place right now, because we are kind of still at that point of like this feeling like an actual group of friends for the most part. So I agree with you that I think that this is a really good group right now that they have. And I think for me, like, highlights of the episode, I love Heather. I agree with you. Heather is one of my favorites. I think that the Gina and Travis story is really interesting, and I'm excited to get to know more about it because I don't know that I fully understand why they have to move live separately. Like, I feel like there's something they're not telling us with that, because they were like, we've never seen them have issues like that before in past seasons. Just so you kind of have the background, like that was just as much of a shock to me as it was to you, like not knowing the background there. So I know that Travis's ex, there's something going on there where they're not, I mean, they talked a little bit about it, but like that, where he's saying that she's not letting them get divorced, but she's saying that he's not signing the papers. So I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I'm interested to hear more about that, because I think that that's an interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I was like not totally sure what was going down there either. I was like, oh, well, is something going on more that we don't know about? But we'll have to see. I guess maybe they'll talk more about it, or it's more private that we won't really hear it, and we'll just have to try to guess what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that we will hear more about it, but I will be curious if we hear from his ex. That I feel like we will probably hear from her in the next couple of weeks here, now that she knows that it's a storyline on this season. I feel like she's going to have something to say. She's going to want to get her side of the story out there, especially if they keep referencing her in coming episodes. But the other big story, obviously, was that we picked up filming here just a few months after Shannon's DUI, which took place just a week after last season's reunion. And the entire group is obviously talking about that. Do you feel like in this episode you saw Shannon take accountability for this DUI? Is there anything else that you feel like, if you were her friend, for example, that you would need to hear from her in order to feel like she was taking full responsibility and making changes in her life accordingly?
Yeah, it definitely seemed like she was taking accountability and speaking with the lawyer and like all this stuff that we're seeing. I was like surprised we actually saw that part of it. I was like, whoa, like
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing some of this talk too. But overall, like she was talking with her kids, like there was a lot, I feel like, of showing her just really feeling remorseful and just overall like wanting to be better and not do that ever again. And so I feel like overall, like she was taking accountability, but also other cast members were saying how she was mentioning, we didn't really see this happen, but like that she was saying that she would only drink 2 drinks max, and then but then she said that she was sober. So all these things that maybe like they could be conflicting messages, but I mean I think 2 drinks max is still like that's pretty good, like if she's taking that measure and doing that, but I don't know how accurate that is when they were mentioning like she was pouring a drink in. Like, I don't know, all the stuff like that was kind of like we didn't actually see that. So we're
Mm-hmm.
hearing these stories, like they might say these for drama effects to it too, but I don't know. Like what's entirely truth in that. So I want to give Shannon the benefit of the doubt here and say that she really is truly trying to work on herself and overall like is taking accountability for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that she certainly seemed very remorseful, and I'm sure that she is. Like, I don't think that she thinks what happened was good. I don't think she wants to ever have that happen again. So, I think that absolutely she had an awful night. It sounds like she got into a big fight with John and then left his house and should not have driven. But I do believe her story and chain of events of how that happened. I don't think that she's lying or leaving anything big out to make herself sound better. But I think what's hard in my mind to reconcile is the fact that, she was doing the Tres Amigas tour with Vicky and Tamra. So you might not know, Vicky is a former cast member on the show who we will see this season as well. And Vicky, Tamara, and Shannon have been really close friends, and they called themselves the Tres Amigas, and they were doing tours around the U.S. in different cities. They came to Houston and Austin within the last month or so, actually. And it was a lot of singing, and the three of them are known for going to Mexico and drinking tequila and having, all fun there. And a lot of the show was talking about drinking and talking about going to Mexico and going crazy and all that stuff. And so Tamara, and I think that she's right to feel that that's probably not the best thing to do, is continuing that show after her DUI. And I agree with that. And that's, I think, for context, the DUI happened like the night before Tamara left to film The Traitors this past, like season 2 of The Traitors. So she could not be there for
Oh
Shannon
wow.
right after the DUI because she was in Scotland and her phone was taken away. So I do think that I agree with Tamara that I wouldn't have totally feel comfortable doing that show the way that it was after what happened. So I don't think that was the best thing to do. But for Shannon, I get it that that's a source of income doing that tour that she had committed to, and I get both sides of it. I do. I think if she's sneaking drinks, that's not great. But I think we'll need to get more, and I'm sure this will be all season long. We'll be hearing more and more about this story and getting both sides. So I'll be interested to see over the next coming weeks whose side the audience lands on and whose side we land on as well. So we will certainly continue keeping up with that. But let's kind of get to the meat of this episode here, lastly, before we move on. Shannon and Alexis at the end of the episode finally had their conversation, the long awaited talk, because Alexis Bellino, who's a former cast member on the show, she was on seasons 5 through 8. Shannon came in season 9, so they never overlapped on the show. They had never really had any sort of interaction, to the best of my knowledge, until this whole situation happened. So we were all waiting to hear them. What were your thoughts on their conversation? Whose side were you on as of?
Yeah, that was wild conversation. I feel like overall, like I am more on Shannon's side in this. I feel bad for her that she had to go through that with Alexis's ex-husband and the lawsuit there, which I didn't really know the context until this episode. I was like, "Oh wow, like that's crazy." What happened, but overall, like it felt like then Alexis was just like, "Oh, you only care about this because I'm dating your ex-boyfriend now," and obviously, that's not really what Shannon went up to her to talk about. But I felt like Alexis was trying to take the victim blame there, just like try to be like, oh, well, this is not like what you're trying to talk to me about and all that stuff. So I didn't really like the way she acted in that conversation. So much more on Shannon's side on that front. What about you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that look, Shannon was the one who wanted them to talk, so it was not Alexis that initiated that conversation. But I do think that Alexis really came in hot, and she needs to understand, and I'm sure that she does. I think it's one of those things where she felt like, oh, I'm coming back on the show after it's been 11 years that she's been off. So I can see in Alexis's mind, she's probably like, I have to prove that I deserve to be here and that they are going to call me back to keep filming, because as a friend, she could only, she's not necessarily contracted to be in a certain amount of episodes. Like they could just call her a few times and call it a day. So I think she wanted to come into this and be like, okay, I need to bring it so that they will keep asking me to film. And so I think that she came in really, really
Mm-hmm.
hot, and it wasn't a good look. I think that she needs to understand that this is really hard for Shannon and have a little sympathy there for her. So I agree with you. I was in that conversation, I was team Shannon. I am open to being team Alexis later on, depending on where things go. But for right now in that conversation, 100% I was team Shannon. But let's now move on to Love Island USA. So Molly, take it away.
Yes, I know. The top of our minds every day is Love Island USA, and it's just been an incredible season. Week 5 just wrapped up, and we got a lot to talk about this week. First up, let's talk about the movie night. So, we were all anticipating this night, seeing what videos were going to be shown, how that was going to be perceived by everyone on the cast, and seeing how maybe if Kayla and Aaron were going to break up or stay together after that, or what was going to happen with anyone else that we're seeing the videos, like Serena and Cordell, all those things that we obviously knew what happened at Casa, but not all the girls knew. So that was definitely interesting to see. What are your initial thoughts on movie night?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's been very controversial. I feel like the feedback that a lot of people online, it seems like it felt like they made some of the girls, especially Leah and Liv to a certain degree too, kind of look bad, worse than they should based on the context of their actions. Like, we saw, obviously the big one was the Leah and Rob clip where Rob was crying and Leah was going off on him. And this was from way back in the beginning of the season. And there's obviously a lot of context there that made people at the time be on Liv's side with that for largely. But in just that clip alone, it really made Rob look like the victim. So I think overall there were a lot of clips that I was glad they were shown, but there were a lot that I think were taken out of context that probably really impacted the way that they view certain people while they're in the villa, that I think when they come out, they will maybe have a different opinion on.
Yeah, for sure. I felt bad for Leah and all the heat that she was getting in those clips because, I mean, at least like they were talking through things, and it seemed like after conversations were had, like everyone seems to not have any hard feelings towards her. So that was good. But in the moment, everyone was like, why are they going so hard on Leah? But overall, like, I feel like it was good that it was aired out though in a way too, like what they were saying, like Rob and Leah in their conversation, that now like they've moved past it, like they've gone over the hardest part, that like it's fine now, like they've made amends, like things are good. And there's so many people trying to ship them still. Have you seen those? That's like
I
everyone's
know,
like Rob and
honestly,
Leah, like they're meant to be, and I'm just,
I'm kind of shipping them.
are you rooting for it?
Kind of.
I
Like,
know, me
okay,
too.
no,
It's bad.
I'm not, but like, I think that Rob has more like I feel like he has more chemistry with Leah than he does with Daniela, and I think that Leah might
Mhm.
even have more chemistry with Rob than she does with Miguel. I don't know. Like, maybe, but maybe it's more like a brother sister thing. Like, I feel like maybe their chemistry is more brother sistery or friend, like best friends, than it is romantic. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see that, but I think because it started out romantic and it like went from like 0 to 100 really quickly with
Yeah.
them, like I think now that they've been in different couples and like they're still kind of friends, like they're still close, they're still talking to each other, and the audio of like Rob saying, "Oh, I never hate you," like that's going so viral right now.
Hmm.
That like everyone's just trying to latch onto that, and then also showing videos of him like looking over and like all these like little things that are adding up to maybe that Rob is still interested. And I feel like Leah would also still be interested if she knew that Rob was interested.
Yeah, 100%. I think if Leah had any inclination that Rob would be interested, I think that she would. I don't know if she would go for it. I think that she would absolutely consider it at the very least. I think that she would probably talk to the other
Yeah.
girls and be like, "What do you think? Like, what should I do?" I think that she would be considerate. But actually, though, I still wish that we had an ending to the Rob Live saga, because I feel like that started to really become a thing right before Casa, and then we never really heard anything of it after that again. And I do think that there were certain people, and this is skipping ahead a little bit, but there were certain people during the recoupling who thought that Rob was going to pick Liv at the end there instead of Daniela. So I didn't really think that that was going to happen, but I do wish that we had like seen them have one more conversation to kind of end it at the very least, like decide whether they were going to go explore that or not. So maybe that was the editing making it seem like more of a thing and more of a possibility than it really was, but I do wish that we had some sort of an end.
Yeah, I mean, Liv talked about it a little bit on After Sun,
She
where
did.
she mentioned like they were just really good friends. But I'm not sure because maybe she was just trying not to overstep with him and Rob or with him and Daniela, that like she didn't know if there was anything more romantic there. It was more just like their friendship. So that was the one that was like when Rob went up to the recoupling, that was the one that I did think I was like, oh, could be Liv, but everyone else I kind of understood like who they were picking. So we knew when Catherine and Daya didn't get a match, like or didn't get a couple, like that they were already gone before they even went up to every couple. But with Liv, like I was sad to see her go because she's also an OG. and everyone was crying, and it was sad. Like I teared up. Like I was like, oh my gosh, no, I love you, Liv. I love her commentary, and she has always stood up for the girls. And I mean, we don't have that much longer left of the season to be without her, but it's still sad that we can't see her in this next week. But what were your thoughts on that recoupling?
Yeah, I miss Liv already. I mean, I even just on the last episode without her, I really, really missed her. I just think that she's such an important, like Ariana said, I think she put it perfectly. Like, Liv is just such an important part of that friend group. Like, it's as if, like, I mean, making a housewives a
Mhm.
comparison, it's like losing a housewife before it's their time to leave. Like, where you really feel the impact of them not being there. Like there are times when it's like, okay, this person just isn't organically like friends with like this group anymore. They're just not, their heart's not in it anymore. Like, and so then they can leave and you don't really feel like they're missing. Like it feels right for them not to be there. But that's not the case with Liv. Like it just felt like she left before her time. And I know that she never had a connection, a real romantic connection there. Like it really was time, like, technically speaking, with the purpose of the show, but I just wish that she could have just like been eliminated but stay in the villa. Like Camp Comeback on Big Brother a few years ago where they had that for the first few weeks where they stayed in the house after they were evicted. Like let's just do that with.
Yeah. No, that would have been incredible because we need to live there. Like it's just not the same. But I'm not sad to see Catherine and Daya go because they were just they were just there. At that point, like, I mean with Daya and Cordell though, like she really called out Cordell for saying things to her, like doing certain things that Daya in the end, the fact that she's just like, oh, I'll love, like no worries, like it's all good. I was like, all right, you go from hating on him, like being like you're the worst possible person, being like, oh yeah, like things are great, it's all good here, and like going to Serena, like, oh, I love you, like you're gonna be so great. Like she was basically trying to tell Serena like not to be with Cordell. Also, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what happened here? So that was definitely an interesting one.
I liked seeing Dea and Serena really kind of like form a connection over their issues with Cordell. Like I think that that
Mhm.
was nice to see them really be honest with each other about their feelings about him, and that once Dea kind of like realized that she wasn't into Cordell, like she really bonded with Serena. That felt like, and that was nice to see. I appreciated the way that they both handled each other with that, and they both took their anger out on the right person at that moment, which was Cordell. Like they really never took it out on each other, and I thought that was really mature and
Yeah.
really nice and kind of rare to see on a show like this.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm happy to see that Serena and Cordell are doing well. And did you see that OBJ also shared Serena and Cordell in the picture? Like everyone was
No,
commenting on like, oh, okay, Daya is so upset about this or something, like joking that like he was sharing like, oh, vote for them when they were showing the vote.
no, I
And
didn't
some
see
people were like,
that.
oh, this is a diss that Daya now that Serena's on Serena's on his story. But I mean it was funny. I mean the fact that they also mentioned on After Sun that she was like, "Oh, it's Photoshop." I was like, I don't know about that, but I mean, you can Photoshop anything on Instagram. So I know I mentioned like,
Yeah,
I'm
but that's
sorry if
so
it's,
easy to
I
tell.
was
I mean,
just like
unless she
jumping ahead.
deleted
That day I like commented on OBJ's. Yeah. What? Oh, she
I feel
deleted
like
it.
so unless like she deleted the comments, which like she couldn't have done from the villa, like I mean, I feel like there could have like people could so easily find that, right? Like I mean, it's so easy to tell whether that's Photoshop.
Yeah, I don't. I should have gone back in Instagram and checked myself instead of just seeing the picture
I
because I
know.
just saw screenshots of it. I didn't actually see it like on the post.
Yeah, same.
So I'm not sure, but we need someone else's research. But, and
Yeah.
dig back into that. But yeah, I don't know. Overall, like, I mean, she got her 15 minutes. She was fine. So now on to more of the love stories because obviously we were rooting for Serena and Cordell, and if she can forgive Cordell, then I'm happy for them.
Yeah. No, me too. I think that now they seem like a strong couple, and I actually think that they're probably the favorites to win at this very moment. It seems like just based on kind of online kind of the getting the feel of how at least Twitter, that's kind of my gauge, is feeling about these couples. I feel like Serena and Cordell right now are the couple to be.
Yeah. For sure. And I think because they went through such of that like rough period too, that like really proves to me that like they are such a strong couple if they can come back after that. And Cordell acknowledges his mistakes and all of that,
Mm.
that he really did feel bad and he knew that he really did care about Serena and he didn't go about that the best way, that that ends up being like actually makes them stronger, which is really good to see.
Yeah, like I think seeing a couple needs to have like ups and downs and struggles. I feel like for the audience to really connect with them and feel like they're a real like relatable couple. And so I do think that them kind of having the struggle and coming back to each other is worked in their favor in the end of the day, I think, in terms of the audience really rooting for them and being on their side to potentially get the votes to win it. So I think right now they're the couple because I feel like Kendall has really like the audience was really loving him for a long time, and then I feel like lately since Casa, his stock has just been plummeting, and people really didn't like the way that he has been. Like, I don't think that they like the way that he handled the whole Aaron situation, and I feel like he right now is not as popular as he once was, and I don't think that that's going to bode super well for him and Nicole getting the votes at the end of this.
Yeah, the top two couples I think are Cordell and Serena and Kenny and Janae because
Yeah.
I felt like also Kenny when he came back after Costa, like he just immediately was like, yeah, I'm stronger with Janae and kind of forgot about Catherine in some ways that he was just like, I just want to be with Janae and
Didn't we
seeing them
all?
just like kind of rebuild a little
Oh,
bit. Like I
Catherine.
felt like they also yeah. I love Janae. But it was nice to see them like having sweet moments together and Kenny's speech to her and their recoupling was super, super
Yeah.
nice. Like I was like, wow, like that was so genuine and just felt like very much from the heart. And that was really great to see. So I'm rooting for them also.
Yeah, I think like they are very likable. They're probably my favorite couple at the moment, but I just don't know because
Mhm.
Serena and Cordell are both OGs, and I think that people just care, like, are more invested in both of them versus like Jenny and Kenny, where people like Kenny a lot, but because he's a lot newer, I think people are more just invested in Janae of that couple, and so I think the fact that Serena and Cordell are both OGs are gonna kind of bode better for them in terms of just people rooting for them and like being more invested in them as a couple.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of some newer people, we had a new bombshell enter, Harrison, and he went on 3 dates. So, what were your first impressions of Harrison walking in?
Yeah, so I didn't remember a lot about Harrison before this, but I mean, look, I don't feel like he's cool. I mean, he looks like Thor, I get it. I'm not as like in love with Harrison as I feel like everyone else was in the villa. But I mean, I get it. I think that I don't know. I'm not super hyped on him, but I don't hate him either. I'm kind of indifferent, I guess. I think that I like him with Sierra probably better than I liked Sierra with Kane. So I'm pretty okay with that switch up. I definitely felt like he had the most chemistry with Sierra out of all three that he went on dates with. So I think that he made the right choice there, and I guess we'll see where that couple goes from here.
Yeah, no, it was surprising because when we saw Harrison on After Sun, he was really talking about Nicole and that he went on a date with Nicole. And then in the speech, and Nicole was telling him, like, oh, I'm closed off. Like, I'm just seeing Kendall now. And then when Kendall and Nicole were like freaking out that they were thinking that Harrison was going to pick Nicole, I think
Oh
they were
yeah.
probably the only ones who thought that. Like, I definitely thought Harrison was picking Sierra there. I was like, there's no way he kissed Sierra. He didn't kiss anyone else. And the way he was like, oh, I chose the order and the way I wanted it. Like, obviously, Sierra was the first one. Like, he cared the most about her.
Mhm.
And so I was happy to see them couple up. I don't know. They're definitely not going to make it to the final, I don't think. But I think right now, like, they're a good couple. And I'm not sad to see Kane leaving. I felt like he was just kind of annoying me. And overall, he's going off right now on TikTok, sharing things. But
Hmm.
I mean, that was a little bit surprising the way that he did leave. Like, people were saying that if it was anyone else that Harrison had chosen, that they don't think they would have sent home that guy, which is interesting, which I don't know if I believe that entirely, but it just seemed like Kane had some problems with production. And so they were like, okay, well, you're not in a couple. Okay, bye. And so that's what happened.
I'll be honest with you, I believe it. I think that this was
Yeah.
definitely made, the rules were made that way to get Kane out of there. I Something happened with Kane's TikToks. It just is alluding to some sort of problem he had with production there that I wonder. And look, I'm not a conspiracy theorist in this way. I think that Cassie had to have originally been planned to come in with Harrison. I just don't think that they would have announced her last week on After Sun if the original plan had been for her to not come in until like midweek this week. That felt weird that they would announce her that early. So I think that somehow they wanted to get Kane out of there for some reason or another, and they decided to shift whatever their plans were and the format of what they were doing in an effort to hopefully make figure out a way to get him out. I don't know. That feels like maybe a lot of steps that had to have gone right for that to happen. So maybe I'm very wrong on that, but something felt weird and off about a lot of this.
Yeah, no, that's a good point because I forgot that they had both been on Aftersun together, and I was like, "Where is Cassie?" Like, thought she was
Hmm.
supposed to get in here too. So if that was the case, like production, it worked. Like whatever they did to get like what they wanted to get done did work. So that was really interesting to see. Like it was only him who came in at that time, and now we're gonna see Cassie this week. But that now it's gonna be so late when Cassie comes in. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
how is she even gonna couple? I mean, I guess you did mention Rob and Danielle are on the rocks right now, so maybe that's her possibility there. But it's really interesting that she's coming in so late now.
Well, and Cassie and Rob have history from season 5, because
Yeah.
Rob was a Casa guy in that season, and Cassie was a main cast member, and so they talked that during that Casa more they have a little history. So I think that would probably be her easiest connection there, because she's coming in super late, but she does have that history. So even her coming in late isn't as much of a detriment when you're talking with somebody who is not a complete stranger. So I could see her definitely going for Rob first, and I think that Rob would potentially be open to having that conversation. So I think that could still be very interesting. But yeah, no, I agree. I just, it felt like reminiscent of kind of like Big Brother 10 years ago, where they would do obvious challenges that would like or change rules slightly in order for somebody not to get evicted, or to like give somebody immunity very conveniently. Like it gave me a little reminiscent of that era of Big Brother. And yeah, but I don't know, I could be very wrong. It wasn't, super obvious, but it definitely was a little suspicious.
Yeah, and I mean, Harrison and Sarah did seem to have a pretty good connection, so I didn't feel like that was forced in any ways. That like
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
had happened kind of organically in a way too. That it had to be that they got along because I don't even remember him saying Sierra's name when he was on After Sun. But it's interesting now, like seeing them together. Like it like it looks good. Like they seem like they had a good time on their date and like everything like that. So it is interesting how that all went down. If there was some behind the scenes stuff that went on in the behind like closed doors that we don't
Yeah.
see, but maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. Probably won't. But it is
And I don't
interesting.
even care on a game like this if that is the case. Like, I think on something
Yeah.
where there's like a huge grand prize at the end, like Big Brother, where it's a strategy show and whatever, and like it's a little more serious. Like, I would be a little more upset about something like that happening. But look, on a show like this, I don't really care. It's just I'm here for the mess, and it provided mess. So yay.
Yeah. Yeah, and no one really cared about Kane anyways, so good riddance to
Exactly.
Kane.
Yeah.
But for yeah, so it didn't really hurt anyone in that, except I guess maybe it hurt Kane. But other than that, it was good
But he
and
was
good for
happy to
us to
leave, he
enjoy it.
said. So
And Harrison,
everybody got what they wanted.
yeah, and Harrison has experience being on the show, so maybe he's just like, cool, whatever, like I'll do whatever. But I don't know. But speaking of more of the couples, so who do you think is going to make it as the final four couples in the end?
My guess right now, I'm going to say, as the couples as they stand currently, I'll say Kenny and Janae. I'll say Cordell and Serena. Kendall and Nicole. I think that I think the audience will vote for Aaron and Kaylor. I think that Aaron and Kaylor to me are like the couple that I'll continue with my Big Brother comparisons because I always do. I think that Aaron and Kaylor are like the couple that the showmans that the TV audience loves, but the audience that watches the feeds hates. Like I think that enough people will love this kind of all American like cheerleader football player type couple. I think that enough people will enjoy them for that I think they'll get enough votes to make it to the end there, but I don't think they'll win.
Yeah. No, I really don't want to root for Aaron and Kaylor anymore, but I also still do. And like when they said I love you to each other, I was like, wait, like they actually do care about each other. Like they're going through all these hardships, but they're always gonna come back to each other. Like it's just like that toxicity that's honestly like it's enjoyable to watch, but it's so bad for them. And that like I think maybe audience members are
Cue the
gonna be
Leah
like,
audio.
yeah, like
Take
we want
me.
that.
Want someone that sends me to the psych ward.
Oh my gosh. That was so funny when Leah said that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I feel like if it wasn't Kaylor and Aaron in the final, I think that Leah and Miguel would be in there just because everyone loves
Yeah,
Leah. But I don't think that they're as strong of a couple overall.
yeah.
Like on like I don't know, and after Sun, like it seems like they get along well, but it doesn't seem like they're like gonna make it outside of this, is my opinion.
No, I fully agree with that. I think that Leah and Miguel are a strong fifth to me, but I just don't think. I think,
Mhm.
like, to me, Leah and Miguel and Kenny and Janae are in a similar situation in terms of one OG and one that came in a lot later. But I think that Kenny and Janae are just a stronger couple, I feel like, and a more likable like couple that you believe might actually have potential in the outside world versus Leah and Miguel, who we love Leah. And I don't dislike Miguel, but I just don't think that they have enough compatibility and chemistry and like a feeling that they actually would potentially make it outside the villa to where people would vote for them over. I think that people would vote for Kenny and Janae over Leah and Miguel.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm excited to see what happens. And when's the finale again? The
21st,
21st, right? Next week.
a week from
Yeah,
today.
wow, it's in a week from today. That's so sad. So next week, I guess we'll be covering almost all of the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be crazy to see what happens this next week. But what are your thoughts? Do you think Aaron and Kayla are actually gonna still be together? Or do you think they're gonna break up?
I think they'll still be together in a week. Like I think they've had their last big fight because at this point, Casa's over, and I think that they can officially move on from Casa and now that movie night's over. So I don't imagine that they will have another huge blowout fight. Like I actually think they'll be pretty consistent up until the end at this point. So it's just a matter of will the audience keep voting for them and get them to the end. So and I think that they probably will, but I don't think they're going to win. But I do think that they'll make it to the end.
Yeah. No, I'm really curious to see who actually makes it. But I feel like with our prediction, like I think that's pretty accurate of what's gonna
Yeah.
happen. So we'll have to see what happens next week. But I'm really excited to see everything that will happen in the course of reality TV, not just Love Island, but we've got another episode of Orange County, Claim to Fame, and just continuing to cover those next week as well. So make sure you
And
keep
Big Brother
updated. I know
starting.
with Love Island, everyone's talking about it. Oh, and Big Brother starting. I was like, what else? I'm missing something. Big Brother starts this week, so it's a big week for reality TV. So don't get backtrack on your days because you're gonna get behind if you don't keep up with the shows. But yes, thanks so much for listening. And